Welcome to Cut Daisies and Unicorns. And we're back after missing a week. So I'd like to apologize to everybody for missing a week.
Yeah, public service announcement. Hey, by the way, I'm really sorry I had COVID.
I know.
And not me, but him. You can
Right,
hear it
me.
in his voice.
I know. I still have a little bit of congestion. Like, I don't know, though.
Yeah.
Like, I feel fine, but it's...
Well, you sound like you've been smoking Marlboros again.
That's true.
Yeah,
Right.
that's what you
And
sound
I
like.
haven't,
Right.
so. Yeah, I just want to put that out publicly.
Yeah.
Nope, did not pick up smoking again.
All right. All right. Well, that's fair.
So...
I mean, to disclose that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I avoided COVID for so long, and I was like... And then, of course, I go to a gathering where there's thousands of people, and...
Where'd you go? Oh, down.
Willow Creek.
Is that where you think you
I
sourced?
think that's where it is.
You didn't wear a mask there?
No, I mean,
Oh.
that's the other... It was, like, stupid of me. Like, I should have just done it, because I should have known that, you know, I mean, there's people that are present that
Should have known
never
then
masked,
that.
never vaxxed, you know.
Should have known then that I'd be catching the COVID when you're around.
Right.
Bow, bow. Little REO Steve-O wagon.
Yeah. But to me, like, I had a worse time with the vaccine after effect than I actually did with COVID.
I'm telling you what.
So, like, I'm grateful then the vaccine knocks out, you know, I mean...
My booster,
Yeah.
oh, that was a gut punch. And then, of course, I tested negative in November after being at a super gathering event. It was a funeral of an uncle of mine. And, yeah, I mean, like, I think out of 5 that came down with symptoms, 3 tested positive and 2 tested negative. I'm going to keep on using that same test.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so when I don't feel well. I still have a question, and maybe somebody in healthcare
Yeah.
could help me out with this. But when they put out COVID tests,
Right.
so the pandemic started with COVID-19.
Mm-hmm.
All right, now go with me for a minute.
All right. I'm traveling.
Are you with me?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I'm doing the Mr. Miyagi wax on.
Right.
Yeah. Go with me just for a minute. COVID-19, who starts with the number 19 if it's the first thing?
Yeah. I would say it wasn't the first thing then, right?
Okay, Spock. See, you're with me.
Mm-hmm.
That's my point.
Right.
The COVID virus has been around
Oh, yeah.
for years.
Yeah, because it's part of the SARS.
See? Now, this is a history lesson in the making. We were discovering this as we were living through it.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, kind of like the Great Depression people that could tell the stories later.
Right.
We're still here. I'm still standing.
I'm still standing.
Yeah. All right, copyright infringement. So, this is the mood I'm in. You're going to get a playlist right now.
That's good.
So here's my point. Which COVID did you have when you took the test? Bum, bum, bum. Right? I mean, like, so you're telling me that this test, that is supposedly supposed to test you for whether you have
it or
COVID,
not,
right?
Yep.
Now, to my mom's point, Marilyn, you made a good point. She when she's listening, she goes, "Did I? What
Did I?
What point was
What did
that?"
I say?
Yeah. The point is that she's like, how come they're not talking about the flu, during the pandemic? And so here's the deal. I mean, like, how many variations now are we? Like, we're at X something or other, right?
Yeah, I mean, we've gone through major variations. I mean, I think they were on. I mean, Delta was huge, right? So you're already on,
Right.
like if you're looking at the Greek alphabet, Delta's a few characters in.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So
you
that
got
means they've already gone through variations, alpha through delta.
alpha, beta,
Uh,
C is not
I
cap.
don't think they have a C.
Alpha, beta, delta,
Alpha.
and then epsilon is E. People are like, wow, this is cool. You guys really know the Greek alphabet? Well, yeah, I had 4 semesters of it, and I at least can remember the first 4 characters.
Yeah. For me, I had 12 straight weeks of just learning it.
Wow.
So you had much more Greek than I did.
Oh, I don't know. Well, you said 12 straight weeks, but like how like 8 hours a day?
Yeah.
Yeah, see, this is where our educations are different.
Yeah.
You had how many weeks? 12 straight weeks.
12 straight weeks just learning, and then we had to do another class that followed it up with just one class a day, and that was like an hour.
Yeah, so I had
Of
1
follow-up.
hour a day for 3 days a week for 4 semesters. So we could do the math on that.
Yeah.
I mean, in theory, you probably had more Greek than I. But we've already talked about my my final, right?
I think so. I'm trying to remember back now.
So for the final grade,
Mm-hmm.
we had to translate a chapter in John.
Yeah. Ours too.
I memorized the chapter in the New American Standard and just wrote it all out and passed with a C. Now, if you know me and my memory about memorizing things, that it's not a strength anyway.
Right. It's a good strategy though. I mean, you just take like the most wooden translation
Yeah.
and you memorize it, and
Yeah.
then you're like, boom.
You know, and that's how I go through any foreign country that speaks Spanish. I mean, I really can generally follow a conversation. Usually I know context, and that fills in a lot of gaps. So anyway, there we go, veering off. So I'm like, anytime you have any strain of COVID, if you take a COVID test, you're going to test positive.
You would think so.
It doesn't mean that you got 19. Who know? 19 may not even be around anymore.
Yeah, but I think that the variations are still considered.
19 variations.
Yeah, there's still the SARS-V2 or whatever.
Yeah, well, and again, I'm not a scientist, and if you think I sound snarky, the answer is yes, I'm being snarky. I actually had to tell Amy this morning, I'm like, this is sarcasm. You know, I'm in a snarky mood. And so, but my point to that is, what number did they start with? You're going to love where I'm going with this.
All right,
All right, what number did they start with in our pandemic?
19.
How come this wasn't the 19th letter of the Greek alphabet of the first variation?
Yeah,
Why?
I don't know.
Healthcare, somebody CDC, somebody WHO, I mean, somebody tell me.
Yeah.
So you're telling me that I couldn't pick up, I mean, because, like, are these generational things? So, like, if we're talking about Thomas Jefferson, well, he was a person, but he's no longer a person because he died. Now we're on this variation. Doesn't mean the first variations are dead? Or are we just immune to them? They're still all around.
Like a multiverse.
Yeah, I mean, so you got how many of these bugs that we can't even see?
It's
Which,
true.
I mean, I'm rewatching Yellowstone.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and so Grandpa says to Tate, "Yeah, grandson, everybody dies from something." And he goes, "It might be some little micro thing that you can't even see, but it'll kill you." You know,
It's possible.
I just have the question of how do they tell this little swab that you stick up your nose
Yeah.
which variation it's detecting? If this thing seemingly is the same thing that it was before, but just a different variation.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not a microbiologist. This would be a great question for Jill Noble.
But we can go back to the flu thing. So flu numbers dropped because people were no longer around each other.
Oh,
I mean, that was the reason why flu dropped. So they stopped talking about the flu and the flu. I mean, flu numbers always jump in the fall.
yeah.
And what usually starts in the fall.
And
Kids going back to school. Kids are like petri dishes of germs and
And to be clear, when we're talking about what's jumping, the flu isn't jumping. The numbers are jumping.
Right.
Yeah. I'm just,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I don't even know.
I'm with you.
Who knows? Who knows about anything? I'm not 100% on anything.
Well, and so I think that goes back to Chris Thompson question, in how do you know anything about absolute truth? And you're saying, well, I absolutely don't.
Yeah.
And so, I mean,
and like absolutes are hard. I mean, because I think we often spit out lots of absolutes. Like, you never, and I'm like, is it really never? Is it, you're always, we put those, very definitive, absolute, markers on things. Like, you never or you always, and you're like, but wait a second. Is that true, or is it, really... how do we judge absolutes?
well, I think that we take our random profiling skill set and we accumulate information, and we think that we've got, because we're keeping track.
Yeah.
But to go back to Nathaniel Rateliff in the Night Sweats, love don't do me like that.
Yeah.
Are you looking for a fight? Are you just in a place within yourself that you just want to fight?
Mm-hmm.
And even some people's relationships are built on fights. They really enjoy a discourse.
Right, which I can understand a discourse, but if you're looking for a fight, I think that's different.
Some people are just mean.
Right.
Yeah. Huh. Well, you know what, folks? So Phil had COVID.
I did.
And he's had his shots.
Yeah. I've been
I'm worried
vaccinated and boosted.
I worry less about anything that I'm going to catch from him. Because I'm sure that, that could. You just never know what you're going to catch.
All right.
Yeah.
I mean, because I think that you saw me.
We stood right next. We stood right next to each other, on Sunday, and then you tested positive on Monday, and I never came down with anything.
Right.
But of course, and then everybody was worried about you a week later.
I know.
Yeah. So I've been watching that.
No, I'm good. I'm good, everybody.
How to Get Away with Murder,
Yeah.
And so one of the guy's partners, Ollie, he came down. He tested positive for HIV, and as he was disclosing that to a new boyfriend, the new boyfriend was like, I can't handle this. That's a big thing to drop on me and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
he's like, well, actually, because I do know, since I was just tested, by taking precautions, the likelihood of you catching this from me is less versus if I hadn't been tested and I'm positive,
Right.
So anyway, a week later, you're in church preaching. Everybody's like, what if he infects us? I mean, it's been 7 days, folks.
I know.
And,
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, and what's the point? Well, the point is, and that's why the CDC is changing its guidelines, is because that really we've reached herd immunity in regards to the effect that it can have on humanity, and the high-risk people still need to recognize that they're at high risk.
Right.
Who wants to run into a petri dish of tuberculosis? No one. No one.
Never heard anybody say that.
No. and so, and to your point, school starts, kids are petri dishes, lots of germs are going to be passed around.
Yep.
You will find me hibernating in my studio.
Don't talk to me. And if you have kids, keep them locked up.
I'm really looking forward to, hey, first world problems that I heard about this week.
Yeah.
Somebody was bitching about them pulling the lifeguards at one of the North Shore beaches.
Oh, yeah.
In, I think it was the town of Evanston.
Oh.
And they're like, I can't believe they won't have lifeguards on the beach through Labor Day. Blah, blah, but just because the kids are going back to school. Well, the kids are the lifeguards, jackass. When have you seen anybody over the age of 14? I mean, now, this is what we're saying. These kids have gone through the protocol to be able to be lifeguards. So they're
licensed, all that.
And it's not landlocked flyover zone where this is a chlorinated pool and everybody's just dropping the kids off at the pool. Not an inference to the morning routine of dropping the kids at the pool. Okay? But we're also talking about Lake Michigan.
Right.
Which technically, I found this in my research as I moved to the area, is actually the largest freshwater sea. Almost like an ocean because of how big it is, right? Yeah. I mean, like there's a warning. There's a warning on Monday. 5-foot waves, dangerous to swim. Do not swim in this lake.
Right.
Okay. Which I really questioned my dad. Like me growing up, I remember swimming in Lake Michigan on the other side with waves that were 8 and 12 foot.
So apparently they didn't have the same warnings.
Or undertow and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, we're talking East Coast, West Coast. Yeah. I'm on the West Coast, baby! Oh, man. So, yeah, but where was I going with that whole deal? Oh, yeah, so first world problems.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, hold it. We're going to plan on that if somebody gets caught in the undertow, that the 14-year-old, 92-pound
lifeguard
skinny blonde is going to come out and save me.
Because you can still swim there without a lifeguard, right?
So
or is there?
No. If there's no one there to enforce the rules, how does anyone know you're swimming?
Yeah, that's.
If a tree falls in the woods, doesn't make any noise. Yeah. I'm just like, hashtag complain society, right? Oh, let's see. The people around you are tired of you bitching, so you're going to go on Nextdoor and you're going to bitch out to the community and see how many people will answer you about your bitching.
Yep.
People are like, what's...
Yeah, who wants to join me in this misery of company?
And so if listeners are like, gosh, you guys don't post on your Facebook cut daisies and unicorns. No, we stay away from that.
Yeah.
We're pursuing mental health.
Yeah.
Like positive things. You're like, well, you don't do very much. I'm like, no, we're posting things there so you can see it.
Right.
If I had any, seriously, I've actually had 2 thoughts. It wasn't suicide this week.
Good. It's positive.
And so I had two thoughts of like crazy action. One, deleting my social media accounts.
Yeah, all of them.
Yeah, why? I mean, in my head, I know I'm launching Sale of Pottery in October. So, there's a part of me that knows that the algorithms don't even think I sell pottery. But since Meta's going into this marketplace expansion blow up, I'm like, I probably could get in on this and see where it goes and what happens. Because they're actually going to start following the TikTok algorithm,
I heard that
which is sending out the information to people whether they know you or not. All right, perfect. So all of a sudden there's people showing up on, the Reels video thing. I don't know these people.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't spend time scrolling through videos of any topic, or I'm just like, you're looking at Analog Steve, okay? Analog Steve's coming out big time. So that shaving my beard, like
That was another thought.
two drastic thoughts: eliminate social media accounts, shave off my beard.
Like completely, like smooth face, or like
Well,
was that not the complete thought of it?
I don't know. With like the experience that I've had, no sun has touched the tender skin cells underneath this beard for like 9 years,
Yeah.
coming into October, or 10 years maybe even.
Yeah.
And so what I've learned in the past is that it would probably be wise to use number 3 or number 4 guard
Mm-hmm.
and just like shave it down so more air can get in.
The
Because
airflow.
the
Create the
skin
airflow.
underneath the beard is very tender
Mm,
by having been protected for so long.
right.
And then it gives you a chance to be able to root out any ingrown hairs or any blemishes that are going through, and then take it down to, I don't know, I'd probably end up wearing a 5 o'clock shadow or something like that. I
Mm.
might shave my head too someday.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about that someday too.
Yeah. Getting kind of thin on top.
Yeah. Yeah, but I always feel like I have there's almost like there's a little peak at the top of my, so that's what I
So you could
worry
be a
about.
cone head?
Right, so
Yeah.
I worry a little bit about the shape of my head, but we'll see. We'll
Yeah.
see. Anything's possible.
Well, and we're continually reminded of the frailty of humanity
Mhm.
as we've been surrounded by the death of people who would be considered relatively young.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is our mortality is eternally present.
Mm.
There's a little play on words for you. But and so that took me into a place where I'm just like, man, I just can't let that get in my head and live in fear.
Mm-hmm.
Like the fear of the end. I'm like, what am I afraid of? I'm like, I just, and I just think it comes back to, I have enjoyed all of my life. Like there's sections that have been difficult,
Right.
but I've enjoyed all of my, there are parts of life always for me to grab onto that I've enjoyed, and I can run that thread through the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I just think that here's the perpetual question: the fear of the unknown. Maybe I'll enjoy being dead better than I'll enjoy being alive.
You never know.
Well, I don't know, and I haven't had anybody come back to tell me.
Me either.
Yeah, apparently Lazarus, the rich dude in that whole story,
Mm-hmm.
didn't get to come back and tell.
No.
So, and I haven't had an embodiment of someone in the from a previous life. I had some close friends that believed in reincarnation,
Mm-hmm.
and so actually one of the people thought that they knew me from a previous life. I thought, well, that's interesting. I've only known the one life that I've been living. Like, I don't have any, like, reincarnation dreams of the person that I was.
Uh-huh.
And so, yeah. There's another thing, too, that came up in Yellowstone that I was reminded of. Topics that we've talked about in the past.
Yeah.
All right? John Dutton tells Tate, because Tate got abducted. And
Right.
this is a spoiler alert only if you haven't watched it.
Yeah.
If you've
You're
watched
that
it,
far in.
oh, dude, when you're working a 10 or 12-hour day,
That's true.
I can wipe out a season in a day.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I've already watched this thing 3 times. So,
Mhm.
like, it's not like I'm,
Yeah.
oh, I don't know where this storyline's going.
Right.
And so, and what prompted me is November 13th, they're launching season 5. And
Right.
so I thought, I'll get it fresh and
Mhm.
stuff. I really enjoyed the foreshadowing, which is really a pre-shadowing. Like when you watch 1883 and you hear the narrator speaking, then things that Beth is speaking through and generationally how things come and are shared. It's really cool. So she talks about heaven and hell, and she talks about the earth and what is around and all that stuff.
Right.
But when after Tate's been abducted and he comes back and can't sleep, then Grandpa gives him. He's like, "Hey, dude, you can dream about whatever you want. You can be a baseball star, opening up Christmas presents every day of the week, or all day long. Whatever you want to dream about, think about before you go to sleep, and that's where you're going to be dreaming." And so he uses that. And you and I have talked about in the past that I'll be in the middle of a dream and be like, "Hey, this is a bad one," and redirect my dreams consciously at the time.
Switch it.
Yeah, I'm like, we're going to change the storyline. Everybody freeze. It's kind of like Westworld. Everybody stop.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so anyway, I just thought that was interesting and I'm sure that when that was happening that we had talked about that. And so anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
Lovely things.
Did you finish Westworld?
I did.
All right.
Yeah, and I'm really glad that they are very consistently. I don't know if the next season of Westworld will be the last season of Westworld.
Yeah, I don't know.
But it could be one of those things where they actually have 2 more seasons or 3 more seasons of Westworld based on. But gosh, we waited a friggin' long time,
right,
for this season to come out. But I due to pandemic and all that stuff. But man, I tell you what, as far as science fiction goes, I really have enjoyed that storyline from start to finish.
Yeah, so it looks like Westworld Season 5 will be the final season, so they just finished 4, right? So they're planning, at least the showrunner, co-creator, is planning for 5 seasons to be done.
And it to be done.
Yeah.
And there seemed to be a finality.
That's what I was thinking, and very much like you could have ended there.
Yeah, it was leading up to that we're gonna hang you because I don't want to get into the storyline. I did think that the end of who's the black lady?
Hale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Without getting into what really happens, how they brought, I really enjoyed how that closed out with Hale. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that apparently, since it just, finished season 4,
sure,
that they have not said that they're going to renew it, but they're trying, the co-creator, showrunner, still trying to push to say, we need a 5 to close it. But
well, why wouldn't they do it? Why wouldn't HBO do that?
I don't know why, but it seems like HBO, with their parent company being Warner Brothers,
yeah, and
their joint ledger with Discovery. So now Discovery, HBO, Warner Brothers are all in the, and then they just, that Batgirl movie that was supposed to come out, $90 million, it just took to shoot it. They canceled it, scrapped it. That's $90 million that they said, nope, never mind. So they went out and did some previews of it. They had some people do some watching of it, and people were like, this is terrible. But I'm like, but how many of these other movies have they released that have also been terrible, and they've still let it release?
Yeah.
Now, and so it's like, why wouldn't they, that's $90 million that you're going to say, we're not doing anything with this. Think about the actors who were on there who were like, yeah, wow, we get to be in a big budget film. We're going to star whatever it might be. And then all of a sudden they're like, yep, never going to see the light of day now.
Well, but they got paid for their time of the shoot. They just didn't get any royalties on the play out and how it did it.
So, but if you're looking at it, a lot of people are, their contracts are tied to box office openings and, sales of DVDs or streaming. I mean, like there's all kinds of like things that are usually tied to that. So
The extras.
so a lot of them are betting on a bigger opening. And now it's not going to open, so
Sure.
were their contracts also tied to that?
Oh, right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah. I don't know. Like to me, to me, I'm like looking at like why would HBO not want to renew? Like I don't know, but they also just scrapped a $90 million film.
Yeah. Wow.
So
But I mean, they put out a lot of garbage.
yeah,
I mean, stuff that, like, I've tried to watch Batgirl, the miniseries on HBO,
yeah,
and I can't get into it.
Hmm.
Alfred
yeah,
that was incredible.
yeah. That was on Epic or something. Now is it on HBO now too?
I think DC Universe.
Oh,
I
that's
think
true.
it started on HBO. Yeah. Better Call Saul
Right.
was an interesting
Yeah,
conclusion.
I agree.
And
A series wrap.
what I have to say is the gentleman who plays Jesse Pinkman.
Mm-hmm.
I'm endeared to him as an actor.
Yeah.
I would put him in the next generation actors that I look forward to the work, and certainly he is in Westworld.
Right.
I doubt he'll be in West. You never know with Westworld. He
Mhm.
could show up again in cameo stuff and just different things and whatever.
Sure.
But
Yeah, I mean, he was in that. I don't know. Did you ever see the Hulu film? It was a show. It was like a cult. And
Yes.
Yeah. So like, but that one got. I mean, I think that was only like 2 seasons, and then
Yes.
Yeah. But I thought he was good in there too. So
another HBO science fiction one
Mhm.
that is probably on my list to rewatch again. Because, hey, folks, if you haven't figured it out, rewatching science fiction, that's the thing.
It
You
is.
do it just because the stars are your friends, and why wouldn't you want to be there? And so, Leftovers.
Oh yeah, it's a good one.
It's a really, really good one.
Yeah.
And speaking of mortality and eternality, wow! So I think, yeah,
Yeah, we picked up, and Heather actually watched that one. So usually there's ones that it's like Heather won't watch.
Sure.
But because she watched first season of Westworld and then she never watched the rest.
Yeah.
So, but that one I think we saw. I think when it was putting out its last season is when we actually went back and started but watching the first episode through. Because we're like, wow, the last season preview, we're like, that looks pretty good. And so we went back and rewatched it and then finished it. Yeah.
nice,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
It's a good show.
Well, I'm still waiting for, and I won't use the language on the podcast
Mm-hmm.
that I use when I usually talk about Tom Cruise and Top Gun Maverick.
Yeah.
But if any of you know my dearest friend, Autumn Rupke, R.I.P., and we're kind of turning the corner right now on the memory of her passing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but she had a famous quote, and I would just input blank you, Tom Cruise. Every night I go to check to see if it's been released for online streaming.
Uh-huh.
Currently in theaters, the answer is no. I'm like, blank you, Tom Cruise.
Mm-hmm.
Blank, blank, blank you.
Yeah. And you know why that is, because currently it's like the top grossing film ever.
and so they're just going to keep it there.
So they're just
grossing.
like, hey, let's just keep it in the theaters if people are still going to see it. I also have not watched it. There's a lot of people who are like, oh, you got to make sure you see it in the theater. I'm like, yeah, my dislike of Tom Cruise is keeping me away from watching it in the theater.
Well, yeah, this is just one of those things where, and I'm a fairly, I think anybody who's listened to the podcast would understand. Actually, what's really funny is my podcast personality
Yeah.
is not similar to my real personality. I feel freer here to just like blurt out and go off and just, get BS crazy and all that. But what I will say is that I can be very strong-willed, and so I am very strong-willed against Tom Cruise right now.
Yeah.
Me personally, I think I like Katie Holmes more than Tom Cruise. Obviously, she figured that out too,
Yeah.
because she made some personal decisions for herself
Mhm.
that would show that. But I've seen Top Gun on DVD 6 times since he's released that Maverick, and I like the soundtrack on that one.
Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, hey, what movies are you watching?
Yeah.
And actually, someone sent me. I probably shouldn't say this online, but I'm gonna say it. Somebody sent me their Hulu account. So they're like, "Oh, have you seen The Bear?" And so apparently that's getting great reviews, and people are. I'm like, I don't have Hulu, and I mean, just.
I told you could have my account too.
Yeah, this person just sent it to me. Here's my account. Here, I'll hook you up. I'm like, yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
Chain.
But I do like that series actually.
Chain of Fools.
I mean,
yeah.
it's Chicago, but I mean, and there's always elements that people are always trying to like. Are they capturing the real Chicago? Like, nobody really captures it ultimately. I mean, Shameless didn't either. I mean, which he was also in Shameless. So.
Yeah, you just have to. Chicago's its own monster, and there's parts of it where, like, when you start thinking of, I feel like I lived in Des Moines long enough, and by living in Des Moines, I mean like I lived out in the burbs for the first while, most of the while.
Yeah.
2003 to 16, probably 13 years. And then I lived down closer to Des Moines. Beaverdale was quaint. And then, into 42nd Street definitely had us closer to the fire department and vagrancy and a lot of like real life stuff. But I didn't get into like the non-gentrified, there was some scopes of that.
Yeah.
In Chicago's so freaking big.
Mm-hmm.
To get to the underbelly, like you got to work hard at it if you're not involved in it.
Yeah.
And hey, we went to that barbecue place and listened to Wally's band the other night. That was kind of cool. Again, I won't go on the record. I'll tell you offline what I really thought. But everybody's like, well, if it was a glowing recommendation, then you would say something. No. It's just, protect the innocent.
Right.
I was really fascinated by the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm. Pilsen.
Yeah, really, really cool, eclectic. There was a street vendor thing going. It had some feels on a first world level of a third world country. I don't know, really, really, really good like city. And I would say to the average Iowan, it's enough to scare you.
Sure.
But I think of Kung Fu Taco in Des Moines.
Yeah.
South side of the center metro, Des Moines, and but it's a biker bar.
Yeah.
Punk bar kind of thing. Like there was that kind of vibe. I mean, like, gosh, there was probably $10 million worth of motorcycles sitting out there.
Probably.
I mean, you know, and the variety of ethnicity, man, very, very cool to be in and around. Then the other thing is when we walked in, because I think, weren't we meeting at like at 8 o'clock? You know, and then, and the band started at 9,
Mm-hmm.
and there was no one there.
Right.
And the layout kind of reminded me of a cross between, is it the 4th Street pub that's right next to Woolies? And it kind of had a little bit of a gas lampy dive feel to it. Oh,
Yeah.
you know what? The Greenwood. It is a larger scale version of the Greenwood.
Sure.
You know, and stuff. I'm sure the floors smelled like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, but then at 10:37, bam, that place was full.
Yeah.
And then that they let street vendors walk in and sell these lighted roses and stuff like that.
Right.
I mean, it
Flowers and lighted roses.
yeah, I mean, like, and I was like, and then even the drive there was, I mean, because we were in Chicago, probably. I mean, just what, maybe a mile from the lake,
Mm-hmm.
maybe mile and a half from the lake, not very far from the Chicago Stock Exchange.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. So anyway, for
No.
people who know Chicago, and
Yeah.
I mean, you can look at the map and look at Pilsen, but it's not anywhere that Amy would want to live.
Yeah, living in the city. No, that's
Well-
for sure a city life right there in Pilsen. So
Yeah.
lots of neighborhood bars, restaurants in Pilsen. I mean, food. There's a ton of it.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. And then the diversity there is, it's still not as much as like in Albany Park, but you can definitely like the things that they had around there, like that street, whatever it was. I still not aware, but I think it had more of a Spanish, Latin feel to it. And I'm not.
Well, I
saying
mean, and it was like vendors.
Oh, yeah.
Like people had, like, they rolled in their 5x7 two-wheel trailers, unhooked them, and it was like having a farmer's market
Yeah.
that started at 9 p.m. or 7 p.m. and was going until, I mean, we left at 11:30, quarter to 12, and it was still there.
Yeah.
Which reminded me of like the market that we went to in Hong Kong. Very similar about, yeah, and quite frankly, I mean, like whether it's ice trucks, pina coladas, or, I mean, and people hang, like the wrought iron fencing, even in Albany Park. I mean,
Yeah.
there's 2 or 3 different secondhand clothing shops that are posted at the corners of these different streets. I
Yeah.
mean, like, yeah, Des Moines, I'm sure has like some code against doing something like that.
Probably.
Yeah. But like, it's just super cool. And I don't know, does somebody need a permit to sell food on the sidewalk?
I think so.
But
But
they?
whether they do is the question.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because actually, when I came back from Dominican, that was one idea that I had that I thought, you know what, I think I might really enjoy this. The little alcove.
Yeah.
I thought, man, do a couple roasters, get some pre-cooked stuff, but like barbecue and chicken out there, and just like 2 drummies and a wing for $3 or something like that. Just on a Thursday night or a Friday. I wouldn't do it on a Friday night. That's the start of the weekend. So, I mean, but and you just would meet people, and they come up and but then that's one more thing that I need to do. And my schedule, there's only 24 hours in a day.
Right.
Like, I have more ideas than my life's going to be able to handle.
Mm-hmm.
And cloning is not an option yet. Unless I was a sheep.
No. Yeah, I don't think human cloning is allowed yet.
Yeah.
There may be somebody who's trying to do it underground, but
Speaking of Westworld, yeah, Hey, if we get into technology, though,
Yeah.
I do want to bring up one. So what you just listened to,
Yeah.
folks, is you just listened to the part of us talking about culture. This
Right.
is one of the major themes. So if you want to know how to edit through our videos of past seasons or past episodes, just know that the first third is probably talking culture.
Yeah.
All right, now I'm going to move to conspiracy.
Let's do it.
I'm going to lay this out and let you respond, and when you do, I'm going to change the cushion so I can see our counter and stuff like that. Okay, I can't hardly. All right, we're 45 minutes.
45.
We're 45 minutes in.
Uh-huh.
All right, so conspiracy.
Conspiracy.
Now you and I both are confessed conspiracy beholders.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, like, we can see it. Like Agent Gibbons on NCIS.
Uh-huh.
He says that there's no coincidences. So when things seem to be a conspiracy, doesn't pass the smell test, seems okay. So I'm going to bring one has surfaced. This is not me just going to poke the bear,
Right.
but they have rolled a new rocket ship at Florida. They're rolling it out so that they can launch a rocket.
Yeah.
And this is how the news was reported on NPR. They're going to try to get to the moon.
That's how they said it.
Oh, wait. It's an unmanned flight. It's going up with dummies so they can collect information. In your mind, does it sound like we've been to the moon?
Not based on that reporting. And then why is it that we haven't gone back if we have been, right?
Keep going there with, I never knew until I was in my mid-30s to early 40s,
Yeah.
mind you, that there was a conspiracy on whether we got to the moon or not.
Yeah.
In a compliant child environment, hold on with me, everybody. You don't have to fight who you are if you know what you are. All right?
Right.
So I'm just putting that out there. Somebody told me we landed on the moon. I believed them.
Right.
There
It
was
was
a-
on the TV.
There was a whole bunch of people who didn't believe it. Now, talk to us around that. But that was how NPR reported it. And I mean, like, I quote NPR, boom, boom, boom. I'm not watching Fox. I'm not watching major network. But when I listen to NPR, I really do feel like they work hard to report consistently.
Yeah.
I
think
even
so.
hear them bring on when Roe v. Wade went down, they not only brought up all the people who were for abortion, but they actually had people who were pro-life or I really should say more anti-abortion people on and reported both sides from different factions and stuff like that. And I say faction, and apparently I have a potty mouth in my head today because I'm telling you, folks, we are in a situation in the U.S. that we've never been in before, or certainly we're living through a situation that our generation has not lived through before. But let's go to conspiracy. REM, can you believe they put a man on the moon? Man on the moon. So I mean, what do you think, Phil? Have we been to the moon?
Yeah, so this is one, I mean, that we've brought up before. I think we've mentioned this idea. I mean, because like if I talk to my mother-in-law, and I remember bringing it up before, that we've talked about how that there is a conspiracy theory that people would say we have not been to the moon. We have not been there. And so if we follow in line with this idea that we have not been there, then they're saying, but what happened? Like, why was it on? Like, I watched it on TV. This is what my mother-in-law would say. I saw it on TV. And so, therefore, if I saw it with my own eyes, it must have been true. Now, why would they, these, astronauts want to then live a lie? And did they carry out this lie for the sake of the betterment of our country? Why? Because they were saying there was a race. Like they said, we're going to go to the moon before anybody else, before the Russians, before the Chinese, before anybody else gets to the moon, we're going to get to the moon. And it's very important for us during that time frame to be able to project a sense of strength and ingenuity, technology, and so they're saying we needed to get there, and we needed to get there first. So with that, like and you can go online and there's a lot of there's both sides of this that are out there on the Google, and you'd see so what's the evidence for it being a hoax, it being a that it was on a soundstage in Hollywood versus we were actually on the moon. And there's a whole list of things that are there that say this is the reason for it. So when you're looking at it, the flag is waving, and there actually wouldn't have been. There is no wind on the moon. It actually should have been stationary. There was moon dust. There would not have been dust. So there's all kinds of stuff that are that's out there that say this is the reason why we're looking at it being a soundstage versus the actual moon. So you ask me where I'm at with it. I've also read the other stuff, and they're just trying to debunk it. No, these people said they were there. Okay. People saw it on the TV. They announced it. Why would they lie about it? And I'm always like, well, this is our government. And you're not saying our government's never lied to us? Oh, let's go back and debunk that theory. Because we know that our government has lied to us multiple times, in multiple ways, in multiple different places and things. So we're saying you don't think that the government would lie? And I don't know. So Steve, where are you at with it?
Well, here's the thing. They're saying that with this, that the purpose is this is a larger rocket. It's based on old technology.
Yeah.
But it's a larger rocket, and the purpose is so that extended flights, and it's about energy consumption, it's about space travel, but they're doing it as a test for the purpose of being able to go to Mars. Now, mind you, I'm quite satisfied. My life feels fulfilled.
Yeah.
By going to my house and going to my studio.
Mm-hmm.
When somebody says to Steve, now, if we go back to the Enneagram, this is totally me being a 9.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, hey, aren't you excited? I'm like, I don't think I am. Can I have a day to ruminate about, am I excited about said whatever point is?
Yeah.
All right. And people are like, man, you live a really sheltered, shallow life. No, don't confuse my simplicity for shallow.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
That you're really, really going to some strong biases in your own worldview, travel view. So someone asked me one day, hey, if you wanted to go on vacation, where in the States would you like to go on vacation? I'm like, why would I want to go anywhere else than where I am? I mean, if you want to see how confusing it could be to live life with me, I'm like, I'm really, once again, to quote Marilyn, she's like, you're such a homebody. I mean, when I lived in Des Moines, I very satisfied with my surroundings. I knew that my paths, you know, enjoyed carving out life there. They're like, well, what a sheeple. I'm not really sure that that's my mentality.
Right.
It's just what's, you know, like the life I've carved out is something I'm really, and if you want to say, well, that's not growth, it's just comfortable. I'm comfortable with it.
Yeah.
Now, that's multifaceted plate spinning. There's a lot going on, right? But when somebody's like, hey, wouldn't you like to see, would I? I'm like, okay, I'd like to go to Joshua Tree.
Hmm.
You know, I've driven through Joshua Tree before. It was like just at dusk and didn't realize where I was at.
Yeah.
You know, I've been by the Hoover Dam. Makes Westworld seem more realistic since it was shot around that.
Right.
You know, I think for me, I've told the story of my first trip to Colorado. It was in February. There was snow. There was mountains. People are like, oh, what do you think of the mountains? I'm like, I'm a water baby. I get more joy going down and walking on a rocky beach at Lake Michigan than I do looking at a mountain. Now, I've not been to Colorado in the summer, so I don't know about, some people are just like Rocky Mountain High, John Denver song. You know, and so like, you know, oh, you know, wouldn't you be excited about, I'm like, gosh, you know, I'm like, I don't know. I don't find air travel exciting or fun. It's just a necessity. I've been to California multiple times in the last 12 or 14 months, and you know what? It's okay. I'd rather take the Pacific Northwest. I love the Seattle area, like, you know, but of course I'm getting closer to water. See, so you're seeing my compass navigate through that. So
well, and then you get the mountains and the water.
Well,
So
and
it's
the
a very
tree,
strong mix of both.
the tree growth in California. I mean, man, one good earthquake and it drops and goes, bloop. You know, I mean, but the effect of the change of weather patterns and how things are drying out and all that stuff is taking its toll.
Yeah.
Now, that being said, I'm like, why the F do we have to go to Mars? I mean, if we've already been to the moon, and people are like, where's your sense of adventure? I'm like, you haven't even explored all the oceans.
Right.
Nor are most people caring or concerned for how we're destroying that. Well, I mean, so anything below surface, what, people don't care about, but let's like shoot to the moon? So the thing about this 322-foot tall rocket is that apparently this is going to be crucial for humans' future missions to Mars. I'm not really sure why we're interested in going to Mars,
Yeah.
but it probably boils down to colonization.
I'm sure.
And I think that it's leapfrog technology that once there and for colonization and that to be figured out, then it's the next stepping stone to a similar trip to something that could be inhabited. You know, have we gotten to the moon? There was in this article that I read last night, yeah, it was just crazy. The Orion capsule will launch atop the Space Launch System without any humans and orbit the moon before returning to Earth for an ocean splashdown 42 days later. I think they're just checking to see if their technology works. Now, we know because of the space shuttle that they can get people up there into orbit and, you know, and then come back down and land and stuff like that. We've seen that. People have died doing it. Yeah, and then there's, but have we gotten there? If we could go there and go around and come back, why aren't we sending people up there? Well, it's because it's the first time in how many years that it's even happened. And then they went into Situation where then it talked about how many people back in the day were used versus how many people are available to do this. But then we're talking about microchip technology increasing and like all this stuff that they were keeping track of what was going on back in the day.
Yeah.
I mean, like, was it really, were they able to? I just don't know. But Hidden Figures is one of my favorite movies to watch. I mean, so I don't know.
So they said the last time a person visited the moon was December 1972 Apollo 17 mission. So, and they said, so astronauts often say the reasons humans haven't returned to the lunar surface are budgetary and political hurdles, not scientific or technical challenges.
Yeah.
So they're looking at more like the Blue Origin and SpaceX. So that's Amazon and, Elon Musk. Maybe the first entities to return people to the moon. But I don't know. Yeah, so I, going back to that conspiracy theory, I'm not saying I'm like full bore, like I believe that, it was all a conspiracy and that we haven't been to the moon. I'm not fully in that camp. But there are things that make me question, like whether or not sometimes I think that it may not have been the case.
So here's what's also interesting. So maybe Buzz Aldrin actually gives us some insight to why the conspirators think that it wasn't. O'Brien says, let's talk about this because this is fascinating. I remember very clearly, I think anybody who was alive at the time does. I remember my parents waking me up and we went down and we watched you guys land on the moon. And Aldrin responds, no, you didn't. Because there weren't any television, there wasn't anybody taking the picture. You watched animation, so you associated what you saw with, you heard me talking about, how many feet were going to the left and to the right, and I said contact light, engine stopped, and a few other things, and then Neil said, Houston Tranquility Base, the Eagle has landed. How about that? Not a bad line. The moon landing took place on July 20th, 1969 with astronauts Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin. NASA said in 2006 that no one could find the original video recordings of the July 20th landing. However, in 2009, NASA released a complete digital makeover of the original landing footage that clarifies the blurry and grainy images of Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin walking on the surface of the moon. A video compiled by CNN shows the available footage from the mission, including takeoff and astronauts climbing down, walking on the moon. The Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum explains the challenges of recording footage of the moon landing and walking. So NASA contracted with Westinghouse for a black and white camera costing $2.29 million to capture the iconic moment, according to the museum. Photographs of the camera, which was stored in the lunar module's modular equipment stowage assembly near the ladder Armstrong can be seen climbing down. For us today, we can thank technicians for having recorded the broadcast, though the tapes assumed to be of the highest quality were never located despite searches for them in the last few decades. What we see now on YouTube or in films are high-definition scans of the best available copies. Many broadcasters use simulations to flesh out their Apollo programming, and networks paid hundreds of thousands of dollars for scale models of Apollo command modules and rockets. During the broadcast, these were used to create simulations of the mission, which were then intercut with real footage. The thing is to remember is what news was like in the late 60s, not 24-hour continuous coverage. The coverage of that trip needed to be explained to the public without the ability for a continuous relay of video that we are now used to. Animations would have been a part of a constellation, pun intended apparently, of different ways that the story were told over a series of days. At the time, the coverage would have been combined with animations that help provide a broader picture of what was being done, but this certainly doesn't invalidate that those landings took place. So there's a reason why the conspiracy seems so verdict false. Buzz Aldrin explaining that broadcasters use animations during their coverage of the moon landing does not prove that it was fake. This is from Rutgers fact check team. So they're saying the conspiracy theory, based on, what's going on. A lot of, hey, did we really go to the moon? A lot of it is like, hey, it's a conspiracy, but we really were there.
Yeah, so apparently this one article was from the Institute of Physics. They had mentioned that if you still have really good, telescopes, you can see the things that were still left there, like the flag.
Huh.
So, like, if you're looking on the moon, you can see that they left things. So, like, that's where they would say it wasn't faked because the
We've
things
been
that were
there,
left are
stuff's there.
there. So, yeah, I don't know. So I think, like bringing it up, of course, we continue a legacy of conspiracy, which we have talked about that, the legacy of conspiracy on here, is that there's probably some grain of truth somewhere within it, but then you grab a hold of that grain and you kind of amplify it, blow it up, make sure that it's out there, so I think that there's some of that makes the conspiracy theory live on. So,
Yeah.
because they talked about the flag. It said, in fact, it isn't fluttering at all. A horizontal rod at the top of the pole holds the flag unfurled. This makes it look like the wind is stopping it from hanging down, and there's a fluttering effect because the weak gravity on the moon is not strong enough to uncrumple the flag. So after a little waving while the astronauts planted the flag into the moon's surface, they have remained still ever since. So that's their explanation of like why the flag looked like it was fluttering, but they're saying it wasn't fluttering. So
Wow.
So, of course, until we return to the moon, there will always be anomalies and oddities in the records that can spark new claims that the moon landings were faked. But it is the sheer size and variety of this record that proves every one of these claims to be false. So, from the Apollo moon missions, there are 8,400 publicly available photos, thousands of hours of video footage, a mountain of scientific data, and full transcripts and audio recordings of the air-to-ground conversations. We even have 382 kilograms of moon rock that Apollo astronauts brought back to Earth. These rocks have been independently verified as lunar by laboratories around the world, ruling out a U.S. conspiracy.
Or the aliens that we haven't met yet just brought them to us and said, here, use this like this, and we'll take care of the rest of the space flight. I don't know.
Yeah.
How fascinating do you find this, Phil?
Yeah, I think that, and this is the really great part about conspiracy theories is that, if you just dig into like just the conspiracy side for long enough, you're like, this makes sense, right? I mean, the whole, 9/11 was faked and it was really the government. I mean, like, if you dig into it long enough in the conspiracy side, of course you're like, wow, like that makes sense. That I can't believe that this occurred. Like, but you also, with conspiracy, you have to be able to look at the other side too and say there's somebody who's saying no, this is real. Or this was, this was not the government 9/11. This was us at the moon. Like, so we have to look at the other side and be able to balance out evidence as well. Where are we going to land once we actually know, that there's also other people saying that this is real? And that's where this physics page, the Institute of Physics, they're saying, no, like, this is real. Like, we were there. And yes, we haven't been back, since 1972, but.
Yeah, so 45 years later.
Yeah.
On the Insider page, I don't know if this is a credible source or whatever, it says a permanent human research station on the moon is next logical step. Now, quite frankly, dollar cost averaging over the last 45 years.
Yeah.
Instead of all this throwaway shit that's up circling the Earth in orbit, why in the world haven't they done that?
That is a good question.
And then it says it's only 3 days away. We can afford to get it wrong and not kill anybody. Their concern is human life. Okay. Chris Hadfield, a former astronaut, previously told Business Insider. And we have a whole bunch of stuff we have to invent and then test in order to learn before we can go deeper. And so a lunar base could evolve into a fuel depot for deep space missions, lead to the creation of unprecedented space telescopes, and make it easier to live on Mars.
Yeah.
So apparently just because there's water on Mars, they think it would be easier to be at Mars than somewhere else. And solve long-standing scientific mysteries about Earth and Moon's creation. It could even spur a thriving off-world economy, perhaps one built around lunar space tourism. Great. So now we're talking about that rich people get to go to space.
For the right price, you too can be on the moon.
Next big line. It's really expensive to get to the moon, but not that expensive.
Well, whose budget are we talking about?
NASA's 2019 budget is $21.5 billion, and the Trump administration is asking Congress to boost that to $22.6 billion in the 2020 budget. Yeah. These amounts sound like a windfall until you consider that the total gets split up among all the agency's divisions and ambitious projects. So you got the James Webb Space Telescope, the Space Launch System, the SLS, which is now rolling out, the far-flung missions to the Sun, Jupiter, Mars, the asteroid belt, the Kuiper belt, and the edge of the solar system. By contrast, the U.S. military gets a budget of about $680 billion a year.
Yeah, so I didn't realize. So this trip is in 2022 is only going to go around the moon. It's preparing for a 2025 landing. So like this isn't even us, now and this year trying to land on it. We're just traveling around it again.
Yeah, and they're doing it so they want to make sure they got the bugs worked out so nobody dies.
Right.
Yeah. Again, if that already happened and that technology is available, back the bus up. NASA's portion of the federal budget peaked in 1965 at 4% of the national budget. We're doing a deep dive here, folks. U.S. National Budget 2022. $41 trillion. Oh. That's 2015. There's 2022. Man, it really gets hard to.
It does.
I mean, oh, there we go. No, I'm not looking for the debt. I'm looking for the budget. $1.3 billion in pensions. It's like the third largest part of the pie.
That's just like former government employees.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And 50% is $701 billion in welfare. Defense is $1,115 billion, and healthcare 16. Education only $282 billion. I think it's in the trillions. Oh, no. Yeah. You know, you think it would be easier to find out just somebody saying, hey, this is what 7 trillion in combined discretionary, mandatory, and interest spending. $7 trillion. So 4% of 7 trillion. That would be the equivalent that if, like, compared to what happened back in 1965. For the past 40 years, it has remained below 1%, and for the last 15 years, it's been driving towards 0.4% of the federal budget. 2005, NASA estimated that returning to the moon would cost about $104 billion, $133 billion today with inflation, over about 13 years. The Apollo program cost about $120 billion in today's dollars. So back in the day,
Yeah.
with the equivalent of what they were spending, it's equal to about 100. So they did it under budget. There's a government thing for you.
Yeah. Debt held by the public. 24.2 trillion. That's the end of the fiscal year.
So, in this whole technology thing, that's where I was going. And if people are, hey, so current day, we're in the lovely state of Illinois, in the city of Chicago, in the neighborhood of Albany Park, August 18th at 10:30 in the morning. Just wanted to let everybody know that, I mean, one of the things current culture is, you know, people are really getting hit with inflation. Wages are not matching inflation. Wages have never matched inflation, at least for the last 15 years. Talking about a lacking space program. We've been caught up in a cycle of, I'm just going to go on the record, this is my view. There could be other views. I could be proven wrong. Don't usually talk about stuff I'm wrong about, but I'm just putting it out there.
Yeah.
The rich have gotten richer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not anti-wealth. I'm cool with people who make money, get money, you know.
Sure.
But the rich have gotten richer. There has been a work toward the elimination of the middle class.
Mm-hmm.
Fight me on it. And so then the driving force is that, you know, get people into poverty and dependent, and then let everybody bicker and fight and feud. Now, I do think that one major thing that happened,
Yeah.
and I'm just guessing here, but it seems that ever since the wall came down and the Cold War
Yeah.
was dissolved, the United States doesn't have a direct enemy. Now, I understand that we went to the Middle East so that we could get oil.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm presupposing all of this based on my biases. But like when the Cold War was going on, the U.S. had a direct enemy to be fighting against and warring against. This is total dualism, tribalism at its best. With the absence of that, it seems like the United States now has created its own enemies within itself. And that's coming out in the separation of the tribes. And so whether it's white supremacy, it's the haves, it's the have-nots, it seems like that there are people, I mean, if you got a lot of money, you got a lot of money, you know, in this kind of thing. But another thing that's happening is this whole transistor thing. And all because somebody goes over to Taiwan, and now we've got shortages and all this other stuff. Now, basically, we're dealing with raw material, making raw material, the ability to do it, and an anti-nationalist feel where instead of bringing everything in-house and it's all taken care of in the U.S., it's a global economy, global market, and all of that going on. But I just want to tell you that literally 3 years ago, the 2008 Honda Element that I paid $13,000 for was worth about $3,500.
3 years ago.
3 years ago. So, gave the car to Micah, blah, 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 blah. I checked on NADA, .com, said, here's a car, you drive this. I got the FJ. Now we flash forward, his family's growing. And I'm like, well, hey, trade me that car for this other car, and, you come up with the difference and you'll be good to go. So we do that. And I go to NADA. At the time, the vehicle's worth $5,000.
Mm-hmm.
All right, now this is middle of pandemic. Okay? Do you see where this is going? This car is getting older, but the value's going up.
Which never happens with vehicles.
It didn't happen until Obama did a buyback on all of the old cars, and it was a part of what he did to generate the economy with pulling the cars that had the old catalytic converter. It was, and stuff like that. So they had these huge buyback programs on that. If you bought this new car, but you traded this in, we'll give you this much money. But what happened is it took a lot of used cars out of the market, and then the used car market started climbing because supply and demand.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, now we're in a transistor shortage. And so I want to talk about leading technology and trailing technology, but this is what I found. I got on. Now, mind you, that car's been paid for 4 years. Okay. So other than taking care of it, changing the oil and keeping it, tires on it, not doing anything to this car. And I've only had the car now for about a year. And so I go and I'm like thinking, my truck's getting close to being done, blah, 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 blah. I'm going to sell the Element because I don't need 3 cars.
Mm-hmm.
I go to NADA last night. That car is worth almost $9,000 today.
Wow. That is crazy.
And 4 years ago, I'm telling you, I was driving the wheels out. This car has 192,000 miles on it.
Yeah.
There was a 2008 Honda Element, 181,000 miles, listed on CarGurus.com for $8,700.
Wow. That's crazy.
So do you think I'm going to take the car to the detail shop, have it detailed, put one tire on it to remedy a tire that's wearing out, and I'm going to maximize the sale of that car?
You should.
Right? I mean, literally, I was at a place where I thought that if I could make $1,000 on that car, it would be like fair and equitable, right? Mm-hmm. So then I did some more research. I mean, these cars go 300,000 miles, no problem. I mean, my Honda Civic blew the engine out. There has been about 100,000 miles put on this car. And I'm sure there's been weed smoked in it.
Not by you.
It's kind of a camping car, But, it just is hilarious. But that's they're shortages. Mm-hmm. And because of shortages, costs are going up.
Yeah.
But I really like this a friend of ours used to say, "Hey, I like to be on the leading edge, not the bleeding edge." And but then they were talking about these transistors and these computer chips and how there's leading edge technology, and it's going to affect advancement. All right.
Yeah.
But even the trailing edge technologies, and I'm like, oh, the trailing edge. So there's all kinds of perspectives around these edges. I don't know. I bring that up, and I'm just like blown away. I cannot believe that that's what's going on in the market. Talk to us about what it means to buy a used vehicle and how you're getting ripped off.
Yeah. Because I also think, I mean, like that the market was, I mean, because you're looking at pandemic when a lot of those factories were shut down, so they weren't pumping out as many new cars.
Well, I couldn't get the parts.
All right. So if you're looking at then new car shortage goes down, I mean, there are people that were going back, and what I'm hearing, like those car companies are saying, we're going to buy back that vehicle from you, like for basically what you paid for it.
Oh, buddy of mine out in Iowa, his brother's landscape company bought 2 trucks.
Yeah.
The dealership came back to his brother, offered him $5,000 more than he had paid for it, and he had used it for 6 months.
Yeah.
Because they had a customer that really needed that truck.
Yeah. Yeah, there was somebody I was even talking to who was looking for a truck, right? I mean, they've driven a truck. They're a contractor. They work in that field, so they need a truck, right? And his truck is starting to break down, right? And he's like, "Yep, had this forever." He said, "But I can't go and find a truck that I can actually afford anymore."
Yeah.
Even like a used truck, he's like, they're asking like an absurd amount of money for used trucks.
Yeah.
And he's like, so I still continue to try to make this one run, and try to do whatever I can in order, until that day, until I can actually find some way in order to be, back, into a buying, market. He said, currently, not there. Yeah, but I like this idea. So cutting edge versus trailing edge.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and when you heard, was an article or was this a story like that you had?
NPR.
Okay.
So I say listen to an article all the time, kind of thing. And so NPR was. And they were talking about the transistors. It's a trailing story to when what's her name, was it Pelosi, went over to Taiwan.
Oh yeah.
And the difficulty that all raised. But then it's she was trying to reach out to establish good, because they have just gone leaps and bounds in their technology to be able to develop this stuff. Yeah. Well, we're going to have to go back. I'm not even going to say out loud what I'm thinking. So, yeah.
So are they saying should we be looking at trailing edge, or is trailing edge still like a bad thing? Like, cuz it seems like you don't want to be on the trailing edge. I mean, cuz that's like you're behind.
No.
Behind the times.
No, they weren't using that as a They weren't using that as a derogatory term.
Okay.
They were just talking about, like, for scientific advancements, you need the leading edge chips, so it's faster, more processing, and all that stuff. But they also talked about how that, like, chips that are used in current manufacturing of vehicles would be more trailing edge. It's, as it's aged into with what's going on. So the engineers go through, design a car, blah, 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 blah. We all know about the master brain in the car's computer, telling it all these things and what it should do, when it should fire, and all this other stuff. I mean, current technology in vehicles, now we have cars where, like, you go into reverse and there's cameras and you can see where you're backing up, right? So, like, it wasn't being derogatory towards trailing edge. It was just trailing edge was probably leading edge, and depending on the speed of change,
Yeah.
determines how quickly it moves from one to the other.
Because I was just thinking about like technology. I mean, because I like technology.
Yeah.
I mean,
Sure you do.
but there's also, I mean, like I'm also not in a tax bracket where I can buy every new piece of brand new technology that comes out. Because of course you're looking at it and you remember like I remember buying a computer in the 90s and it was a laptop and I was buying it for work or something. I mean, and it was like thousands of dollars. And then you're looking at the next year, you know, that one's like $100, you know, or the technology that's in them, like CD burners. Do you remember? Did you ever own a CD burner?
Oh yeah, I still have a computer.
That has a CD burner.
Oh, well, I mean, it's a writable drive,
Yeah.
right? I
Right.
mean, that's
That's
what you
what a
mean.
burner is,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so those were at one point in time cutting technology when you were actually looking at trying to use CDs, right? So not just music CDs, but you were using CDs for other programs and things on the computer. And so it was like it was a high level item to be able to say I want a CD burner. You know, and a lot of those CD burners early on, I mean, were like $600 to $800, where you were trying to buy it. Like now, if you try to go and get a CD burner, you could probably find it for $20 to $30.
Oh.
So just thinking about like that's where I see like cutting edge is the reason why it can be a bleeding edge, because it's going to cost you. Right?
Yeah.
They're saying this is a expensive technology, but then all of a sudden you're behind, right? And you wait a year, you wait 2 years, and now like this is trailing technology, and like I don't use CDs anymore.
Right.
I don't have a need for a writable drive.
Well, and that's where, like, again, in the evolution of technology, the progression with, like, the cloud,
Right.
cloud storage,
Mhm.
Westworld, needing the water for the cooling of all of the, you know, things going on. I want to go back to when you talked about buying a laptop.
Yeah.
Do you remember how much you spent?
The first laptop, I think it was I think that one in the 90s, I think it was like 16 to 1800.
Right.
Yeah.
So if I put that, because we're doing this all on our economy and inflation.
Right.
So what year was that?
That would have been for college, I think.
Old guys talk technology.
So that would have been 96, 97.
Okay, so I'm gonna type into the Google.
Mm-hmm.
How much is did you say 97?
Yeah, I'll go with 90.
$1,800 from 1997 worth today. $1,800 in 1997 is equivalent to purchasing power to about $3,322 today. That's an increase of $1,522 over 25 years. The dollar had an average inflation rate of 2.48% per year between 97 and today, producing a cumulative price increase of 84.6%.
Yeah, that's a huge increase.
Right?
Yeah.
So what, there's where, and we can, so if you want hey, this is a topic, I want to go to YouTube and, figure out, when the dollar was separated from gold standard value
Mm-hmm.
and it became a fiat currency, that's when all of this started. Like, I mean, we're just, everybody gets worked up about crypto and there's nothing backing crypto.
Mm-hmm.
The reality is what's the real, okay, I'm going to go conspiracy on us. The real issue about crypto is that governments can't control it.
Right.
And so, and people could say, well, yeah, but they need to control it. Otherwise, bad people do lots of stuff with bad money, and criminals. And, like, people who are portrayed as good people are criminals, too. Okay, let's just stop with that.
Right.
But, so, do you know what a MacBook Pro at Costco would cost today?
Walked by them at Costco before.
I just looked a
Did
couple
you?
trips ago.
Yeah.
And it's right in that between $2,800 and $3,500.
Makes sense.
Now,
And those are the new ones.
the
Yeah.
new MacBook Pro 16-inch and does not have a CD burner.
No CD burn.
Well, I mean, the reason why you needed an information drive to be was it always came back to operating system. You had to be able to get the operating system on there. You had to be able to do the operating system updates.
Right.
And
most of the programs that you were using were also needed to be done the same way.
now, me personally, I don't feel bad about paying the monthly fee for my online programs that I use consistently. I would rather pay the monthly fee, have them fix all the shit that goes wrong with it, on their side, and I just relog back in and they update and everything's taken care of, than them sending me a disk and I have to go through and then do the boot up and have everything be figured out, and
Right.
or even the download and stuff like that.
Right.
But the other thing is that things have become cheaper in production, and so that's where the companies, and quite frankly, IBM made computers. They planned on replacement. They planned for it not to last a long time,
Right.
because they, just like cars, in a very similar fashion. Oh, hoorah!
Because I think that was Dell's business plan. I think they planned on 2 years. Like, your laptop that you're gonna buy, I mean, mainly like the low level ones, you're gonna plan on 2 years and it's gonna break.
Yeah.
If not before, but I mean, so
Well-
there's not longevity that they were thinking it was going to be a part of that program.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
No, I mean the whole part of that is, and if it wasn't the hardware breaking down, then some hacker was going to be able to get you. I mean, IBM and viruses. Ugh. Don't like that product at all. Yeah. So interesting look. So I looked up the FJ.
Mm-hmm.
They've been driving for about 3 years,
Yeah.
and like apples to apples. I mean, this is really hard to believe, but the value of that truck has only dropped $2,000 in 3 years.
Wow.
I mean,
And you're used to, like, when you buy it and you drive it off the lot, it automatically,
Oh,
drops $2,000.
yeah, and brand new stuff, But again, I mean, I'm driving vehicles like, I think the Lexus was a 2013, and then swap that for the 2008 Element,
Yeah.
and then the FJ is a 2008,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to sell the Element 2008 for a 1962 Ford F100, but but it's sitting on a Crown Victoria 2008 Crown Victoria chassis. So apparently the year 2008 is meaningful to me.
Yeah.
I wonder what the 2008 animal. Yeah, animal year. Oh, it's the year of the rat.
Damn rats.
Chinese zodiac. Interesting.
Oh. So what, conclusion do you have for today on this? I mean, as
Well,
we're
gonna keep them coming back,
Right.
and so that got us through. So what we didn't get to is toxic and healing lifestyles in regards to. We brought up the question on how do you go through ancient teachings and discovery, and do that in a healthy way versus what I was taught in my upbringing. I can do a leading question like this. Have you discovered new ways to think that are not harmful to you or your family within the last 5 years?
That's a good question.
Well, I was looking for an answer.
I mean, to me, I would say yes. I'm always,
Yeah.
always learning about
Well, I'm
different views and different ways to see things. So,
yeah. And have you felt that has affected you derogatorily in your spiritual life?
There's definitely things that then have some conflicting. There's some rub. There's some rub to it.
That's what we want to talk about.
Yeah.
How do you navigate in discovery that there's things that others have taught before that we're migrated from? How do you discern what in those truth or value systems can be applied? And the question is concerning, I think there then becomes the difference between, has it affected your spiritual life? And then what we have to discover is, in a healthy way, in a toxic way, in a strengthening way, in a weakening way, and how do you navigate? And actually, Hillary McBride, which I haven't dropped her name in a long time, she had a great article on her Instagram account talking about that what we're really facing is we're facing a lot of adults who don't realize, because they weren't equipped, that pain does not last. So instead of working through the pain, whether it's emotional or within our body, we end up moving towards ways that would eliminate the pain that actually cause greater harm to ourselves than if we would have endured through the difficulty of the pain. Those are the kinds of things. So, hey, apart from, and I've been hanging out with Phil. Maybe I am going to get COVID. Not planning on it, but I am going to be at a Super Tender event this weekend, and so, you know what? I'll be this all will be uploaded, and you'll get to watch it on Sunday. And this guy is probably going to be in the truck coming back from South Dakota. And so that'll be Sunday evening. I get to see the big baby W, Wesley, and and see some family and stuff like that. So anyway, all those things all brought together. We're coming back at you next week. We are. And let's see. We're on. I think it's episode 7.
Yeah.
We're taking our good sweet time getting through season 6.
We are.
And if people wonder, what does that mean? Well, we're in our 2nd year of the podcast. We just kept going with our seasons, so we're in season 6. Our podcast, instead of based on time frame, is based on we do 10 episodes per season.
Right.
So we're going to be heading into winter before we get done with season 2, technically, of the 2nd year. But our season 6 is
Right.
is the second. It's the second leg.
Right.
But yeah, so I don't know. We'll see what the future has to hold as far as the evolution. And but I'm committed. I'm going to show it to him. I'm committed to that artwork still.
It will evolve.
Someday.
It will evolve.
But no frills, no spills, although I'm really good at spilling coffee. But yeah, so I think that's what we talked about today.
It's good. It's good, everybody. I think that there's plenty to wade through and then be able to even try to start thinking about the question that Steve addressed at the end that we will tackle. We will tackle it.
Yeah, and this is going to give me a shot in the dark. Because taking a shot in the light is an easy shot. Kind of like Elmer playing bags. Got to make it difficult.
I have to make it difficult. Like, even though, like, you're not winning.
we all know people that make it difficult when it doesn't need to be.
Right.
And if you're at the table and you don't know who in the room makes it difficult, you might be the person
might be it.
that makes it difficult.
Don't make it difficult.
All right, I'm gonna move on. Maybe I'll be less rude next
Maybe
week.
next week. You never know. You never know what's going to happen. That's the reason why you keep tuning in. You never know what's going to happen.
What? All right, take it easy, everybody.
See you.